A Kentucky county is dealing with the sudden resignations of their sheriff and coroner in just 1 week. It happened in Adair County following a fiscal court meeting that people say got heated. The sheriff and the county judge executive talked to WKYT's Phil Pendleton about the issues at hand.
It has been the talk of the small town of Columbia for most of the week.
I think things have just been kind of brewing for the last 2 years. Outbursts and stuff.
I do appreciate what you've done.
Both Sheriff Josh Brockman and Coroner Roger Huckabee resigned this week.
You know, when you're working 60, 70, 100 hours a week and then you're working in a toxic environment on top of that, it's hard not to take that home with you.
And the embarrassment is done started with the lack of participation for economic development.
A lot of what happened this week took place after what was a very heated fiscal court meeting. Apparently there were a lot of disagreements aired out in the open in that meeting between the county judge executive and the sheriff and coroner.
You got a judge over here that's going to throw this.
Listen, can I please finish?
Sheriff Brockman said he was attempting to talk about his department's needs when others at the meeting say a microphone was tossed at a magistrate.
If you watch the video, within 3, 4, 5 minutes, my court was up there fighting and arguing and wouldn't even let me talk.
Judge Executive Bryant says the county's problems deal with lack of support for a higher occupational tax.
When I didn't let those magistrates give them full reign of running this county, that's where it stopped.
Bryant says about half the fiscal court agrees with him, the other half wants him gone. In Adair County, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
And Kentucky State Police also say they will help ensure the county is covered for law enforcement, which they say is common practice in many areas of the state.